What's up, Whisper Nation? The boys are back again. Today is Wednesday, so we are breaking down the Thursday night matchup. This week, we have a juicy one. We got the LA Rams going to Seattle and playing in Seattle. This is going to be a divisional matchup. Both these teams need a win. We're going to discuss all the sits and starts, plus ask about what we got on those waiver wire present. All that and more on today's episode of the Fantasy Whispers.
Right here.
That's right. Like Johnny said, we will be talking the Thursday night football matchup between the Los Angeles Rams, who will be visiting the Seattle Seahawks. But if you like that fresh fantasy football content and you want more of it, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and giving this and the other videos a like on your way in. That being said, welcome all the way in, Whisper Nation. My name is Big Travie. You can find me on Twitter at BigTravieTFW. I'm joined by Johnny Game Time Hicks, who you saw in the intro there. You can find him on Twitter at Johnny_Game Time. What is going on, Johnny?
Oh, baby. We're getting ready for that Thursday night matchup. This is a divisional matchup. I hope both these teams lose. I hope it's a tie because that's what the Cardinals need. But I'm excited to break down these matchups. We've got a lot of juicy fantasy pieces in this game. So the Thursday thirst is going to get big. You might need a big gulp this week.
Yeah, big gulp, a big matchup. Austin, do you share the excitement here? As Johnny, you can find Austin on Twitter at Austin_R_Seer. Austin, what's going on? You share this excitement with Johnny for the Thursday night matchup?
It's a great game. It's a great divisional matchup. This Thursday night doesn't even need any marketing on top of it. It's the Seattle Seahawks led by Russell Wilson. It's the Los Angeles Rams led by top 5 on the MVP board, Matt Stafford. The game matters. The game should be exciting. The players are of fantasy impact. Yeah, man, I'm really stoked for this Thursday night. One of the better ones that we've seen, arguably, maybe since week 1, Tampa Bay versus Dallas. This one should be good.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to let Whisper Nation know that it's time to put the PP back in PPR League with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming just launched the Performance Package 4.0, so don't neglect your balls like we saw the Packers front office neglecting Aaron Rodgers all offseason. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code TFWMAN. This will help you tame the Troy Polamalu in your pants. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code TFWMAN at manscaped.com. Once again, 20% off plus free shipping with the code TFWMAN at manscaped.com. So Thursday night we'll kick off week 5, guys, which means we're going to be a month into the season. It's time to talk some disappointing players here after 4 weeks of the schedule. Guys, of these players that are drafted inside the top 12, they were drafted inside the top 12 at their position and currently on the outside looking in. Who are the most likely to regain form, catch fire, and hop back into the top 12? And this is a side note for the 12 people that were drafted as at wide receiver inside the top 12 at ADP. We have 8 of them outside looking in. And so I'll list them here for you guys, and then I'll ask Austin first, then Johnny. So Davonte Adams is at wide receiver 17. We have DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver 18. Stephon Diggs at wide receiver 24. Keenan Allen at wide receiver 26. CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver 31. Calvin Ridley at wide receiver 34. Then Allen Robinson at wide receiver 67 and A.J. Brown at wide receiver 77. Big like names here on the outside looking in. But Austin, I'll start with you. Of those 8, maybe pick a couple that you think are locks to get back into the top 12 here.
It's not going to be a surprising or cute answer. It's just going to be pretty much straight right to it, Travie. I am shocked to see Davonte Adams outside of the top 12 right now. I mean, homeboy right now is earning a 36% target share, and Aaron Rodgers is playing decently following that week 1 dud against the Saints. Davonte Adams is hands down his number 1. Nobody's even close. Like, he force feeds him like the dude's on life support. And yeah, it's going to be Davonte Adams, but I also like the chances here in a similar reasoning of Stephon Diggs. Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders is all right. Gabriel Davis is cool, but Stephon Diggs stands alone in terms of talent-wise. And that's why I actually would pause, though, a little bit for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I love DeAndre Hopkins. His talent is right there, maybe even above those other 2 in Diggs and Davonte Adams. But the wide receiver core in Arizona, Travie, is just too good, too balanced, too many other pieces, which is why Arizona is partially at 4-0, the only undefeated team still there. So I love DeAndre Hopkins. I just think there are other really good wide receivers in a way that Green Bay nor Buffalo has.
Johnny, would you tend to agree with that? Do you have anybody else outside the top 12 that you think would actually be a more of a firm lock to get in there?
Yeah, I would go and try to trade for DeAndre Hopkins right now. I think his value is probably the lowest it's going to be all season. I know Austin brought up the whole there are many mouths to feed, but this offense runs, they run so many plays each and every single week, a lot more than most teams do. So I do think there is better times ahead, especially this weekend going against the 49ers. 40 whiners are going to be saying, what happened to Hopkins? I thought he was out of the picture, and then he's just going to go off this week. So I do think Hopkins I think the top three are going to get back in there. Like Adams, Hopkins, and Diggs are all three going to get in. And I would even throw Keenan Allen in there. I know it's like a big heavy lift on that and saying like half these guys, but like Keenan Allen, all the metrics are there for him. He just hasn't had the touchdowns yet, and those are coming. He's getting the targets in the red zone. He just needs to get in the end zone.
All right, before we start and break down this Thursday night football matchup, I want to say what's up to everybody in Whisper Nation in the chat right now. Brett Johnson, Rob Navarro, Gus Ramos, Corey Dean. What is going on to everybody? Happy hump day, as Gus Ramos says. Gus Bus, we appreciate you. We will get to these lineup questions, especially as the ones that pertain to the Thursday night football matchup, but we want to get through the matchup here, talk about the start-sit implications, so make sure you're sticking with us through the entire show, and we will get through to those questions. As we start with this matchup right here, we are watching a 54.5-point over-under. It's the second highest over-under on the week, and we have the Rams only favored by 2.5 on the road here in Seattle. We look at the Rams side of the football, Austin. I wanted to ask you if it's time to finally say farewell to Robert Woods. I know we've been holding out for better days ahead, but there is some real concern in the Woods nation, I guess you could say right now, with Robert Woods based on the other talent in that wide receiving core.
Yeah, and Van Jefferson is the name that really jumps out. Travis, we heard Sean McVay say he wants to get Robert Woods more involved, and that's all well and good, and I think he's probably sincere. But the question is then, well, who's going to be not getting as involved now as a consequence of getting Robert Woods more involved? And does Matt Stafford agree with his head coach's direction on this one? And I just don't know exactly why Matt Stafford would. I mean, him and Cooper Kupp are doing phenomenal work together, and Van Jefferson is coming and stepping in right now. We saw the Rams lose last week to the Arizona Cardinals, but the Rams are still right up there in the top level of teams. Here's the thing about Robert Woods. He's averaging only 88% snap share this season, which is about 7 points down from where we saw him last year and the year before. Now, he did have 96% in this week, and he had that touchdown. So you're kind of maybe saying, well, maybe we're actually on that up and up. Maybe Robert Woods is coming around. But here's the thing. He was tied in targets with 6 along with Van Jefferson. And while Van Jefferson is on the field less, the targets that he's receiving are of greater quality. He has a deeper yards per catch at 17.38 than Robert Woods currently does. Van Jefferson is the number 37 wide receiver. In terms of passing grade, Cooper Kupp is number 4, and Robert Woods is not in the top 50 right now. So you could argue that he's actually being outperformed by the other wide receivers on the team in Van Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. He's being equally targeted as Van Jefferson, who's on the field for even less work than Robert Woods is, who's then doing even better with those opportunities. So yeah, Travi, I don't really love Robert Woods outside more of a flex flyer type of play right now. I would try to get rid of him if anyone was still holding on to some of that name value. If you can't get rid of him, you feel bad about investing such a draft price and picking him up, but he's still part of a good offense. He's still on the field usually for 90% plus. He will have good games. Sean McVay does want to get him more involved. It's just Cooper Kupp's going to stay involved. Van Jefferson is going to continue to get more involved as he develops more into the NFL. And then we've got Daryl Henderson and Tyler Higbee that are still over there, and Deshaun Jackson, who's been known to catch a deep tutty every time and again. So yeah, I would fade a little bit on Robert Woods. He's not somebody you want to necessarily see on the waiver wire, but if there's somebody more exciting that you could trade for or even pick up off the waiver wire, I would give it real consideration.
Yeah, this is a situation where we have our priors and what we believe in Robert Woods, and then we have what we've seen over the first month and with a new quarterback. And so we're going to have to be putting that to the test each and every week. I thought the breakdown was excellent here, Austin, on what Woods is doing and what the other guys are doing. Just a side note, you did mention Higbee there. Higbee's emergence could be something else that's hindering Woods as well. He belongs on the tight end 1 radar. He belongs in your lineup over most guys in that fringe tight end 1 situation, just based on routes run, percentage of snaps played, and whatnot. Somebody else that belongs in your lineup immediately this week is Daryl Henderson, Johnny, because he's in a smash spot right now. And after coming back from the rib injury and Sony Michel's fumble last week, we saw Sony Michel relegated to the bench and Daryl Henderson really emerge against the Arizona Cardinals in a quietly really good game.
Yeah, you hit it on the head right there, Travis. 90% of the snap share, 79% of the routes ran per drop back rate, which is 3rd among all running backs. He really, put all doubting to the side as to whether or not he should be this lead running back. Look, when he is healthy, Henderson has never fallen short of a 79% rushing mark, suggesting Henderson's role is crystal clear as the team's primary pass catcher as well. Expected him to provide a steady weekly floor, even as a receiver, because they're using him even this year, which is kind of where we didn't expect, right? And so I do think, Sony is one of those guys that you want as a handcuff. But unfortunately, if you do have Sony right now, Henderson definitely looks to be the guy moving forward, especially you're talking about coming off of that rib injury. That is very, very significant. And to see him get that kind of workload does indicate that it was Henderson. So kudos to Big Travie on that one. He was sniffing that out from the beginning. I did think that it started to turn to Sony, but no, it looks to be the Henderson show.
I'm hesitant to take any victory laps because Henderson is like one injury away from just being back where he was before. I mean, that's exactly what they have here. And McVay's made no secret that he thinks Henderson isn't durable. But when he's in there, they destroy his body every time and they give him the bulk of the work. So we'll see how that goes. You're going to keep starting Henderson as he's healthy and as he starts for the Rams. Quickly, you're going to continue to start Stafford. Austin had mentioned top 5 in the MVPs, borderline top 5 as a QB6 now in fantasy. Even in a game where the Rams got boat raced by the Cardinals last week, Stafford put up over 20 points. And now he has no game under 20 points on the year. Seattle's defense, the 8th worst against opposing quarterbacks in fantasy. And this is the 2nd highest over-under on the week. No reason here to shy away from Matt Stafford at this moment. So if we move on over to the Seattle side, before we do, I just want to remind everybody, we got about 12 of you watching in the chat right now. Hit that like button. Keep rocking with us. We're going to get to those lineup questions at the end of this. We're about halfway through now. We're going to talk about the Seattle side of the ball. And Austin, some news coming out and some concern with Chris Carson, the neck, the seeding work to Alex Collins in the back half of the San Francisco game. Where are we at with our concern level with Chris Carson right now?
Travis, I don't know how you could come into this game and not have some concern from the Chris Carson perspective. Look, last week on the breakdown show here, I was calling Chris Carson the only running back in Seattle, as there were literally only 4 other carries that had been had behind a pretty deep running back room over there in Seattle. Only 4 total other carries had by any other halfbacks not named Chris Carson. But then Alex Collins ends up out-snapping Chris Carson in the second half of last week's game, all mysterious-like, and finished the day with 13.8 fantasy points behind 4.4 yards per carry and a pretty nice 34 yards of receiving work added on top of that. He also picked up that rushing touchdown. Now, Chris Carson's dealing with a neck injury. We had a hamstring injury. We got a neck injury. We've got some question marks now, and Collins did look pretty good in the small sample size he got previous weeks, last week, and pair that work with now this injury, multitudes of them it might be, with Chris Carson, along with Chris Carson's worst performance of the season. And I think Alex Collins might have some actual opportunities moving ahead. Collins, for me right now, gets a flex start if Chris Carson is out on Thursday night. Keep an eye out for that. But I would say temper expectations if you are looking to start Alex Collins, as I don't think it would be a clean 1-for-1 replacement given all the other options Seattle has at halfback. I think we'd see Travis Homer's role expanded from just pass catching duties to maybe a little bit more work on the ground. I'm not even surprised if you see DJ Dallas, second-year running back, getting a little bit of work should Chris Carson sit. But Alex Collins would be the pickup, and I hope Chris Carson's doing well. I hope we get some clarity on both his hamstring, his neck, and everything else moving forward.
I think that's a great breakdown. I think that's a great breakdown talking about the other backs getting involved. Too many times we pick up the guy right behind and we think that we know the handcuff, and then we get into a situation where obviously there's a mix of players. And I think that's exactly true for a guy in Collins, that he's not like going to shock the world here. We know what Collins is. He's a journeyman that's had flashes of brilliance at times, but he's definitely not an all-around back that's going to be Chris Carson bell cow, I believe, as Austin said there. I want to talk a little bit about the receivers here before I let Johnny kind of dissect what's going on with Russ. Because we know what we have in the receivers. We know what we have in the passing game. It's DK and Tyler Lockett. When we look at DK, it's kind of, it started with Tyler Lockett. We've had a couple better DK games now, 8 or more targets for DK in 3 straight. Wide receiver 11 in standard. He's the wide receiver 15 in PPR on 31% of his team's market share through that first month. We look at Tyler Lockett. He had a couple blow-up games, as we talked about, but 5 or fewer targets in 3 of his last 4 games. We have the injury over the last couple games. He had those 2 20-point games, but he's hurt his GMs with less than 10 points combined over his last 2. Still healthy market share here, 25%. But it's not as much as that 31%. We should temper expectations with Metcalf against this secondary when we start at the top of the tree here. Although he is only set to run about 12 snaps against Ramsey in this one, Darius Williams is the other cornerback, and he's not a slouch either. Last year against this same Rams secondary, DK caught only 8 of 12 targets for 87 yards combined. That's in both games. So a little bit of a temper expectation. You're obviously starting Metcalf. You're putting him in there. He is a wide receiver 1, but he's going to be more on the borderline this week. Then we look at Tyler Lockett. We look at the inconsistencies, but the Rams have allowed over 24 points per game on average, 180-plus yards to the wide receiver per game this season, and Lockett's going to avoid both Darius and Ramsey mostly. He's going to run the majority of his routes against David Long Jr., who's the slot corner and a second-year guy for the Rams, and I think that's actually – we need to be looking at Lockett as this. When he gets a good slot cornerback matchup, we have to attack that, because I think then we can try to predict these blow-up spots. And right now, he's in one of those matchups against that second-year corner, definitely the most inexperienced corner on the Rams secondary. And I think Tyler Lockett, this could be definitely a Tyler Lockett game over a DK game, although I would be starting both, depending on who you had. When we look at Russ Wilson, Johnny, I think there's a big concern here, because we thought, Russ can cook after week 1, but this team has consistently over the first month been a slower paced team that can't convert on third down, that tends to kind of give away opportunities for their fantasy stars here.
Yeah, it's we were asking for it all season, or off season, I should say. Is this the time? Are they finally going to let Russ cook? They got a new offensive coordinator in there. All signs are pointing towards it. And you know what they did? You know what Seattle did to all of us? They looked at us and they laughed and they said, you want to let Russ cook? All right, we'll show you. And they do it by giving him a league low 52 plays per game on average. That's horrible. Last year they were at 63 and a half on average plays per game. They're getting the 4th fewest passing attempts per game this year at 27.2. Russell's having to be super efficient with his throws in order to make, his fantasy days. And so they're really letting, it's almost like Seattle has this. It's like, if you guys ever cooked on Thanksgiving and, you're using your burners, right? You got all these pots because you got a million things going at once. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I gotta cook this, big batch of gravy here, but I've only got a small little burner. But you know what you do? You still throw on the big pot. You still put the gravy in there, and you crank it up to high. And guess what? It takes forever for that thing to finally heat up, because it's just too much. That's what they're doing to Russell. They're putting this giant pot on him, and then they're saying, we're going to crank up the heat on him. But there's just not enough volume to go and really turn up what Russell's true potential is. So could that end up happening over the second half? I think that's what we're going to see. So that's what I want to describe to people is like, I think it's going to be one of those years where Russell Wilson, because he flip-flops, right? He either starts off hot, ends cold, or he starts off cold, ends hot. I think that's how it's going to be because Seattle is going to get behind in this division, and they're going to need to come from behind in these games and win out. And the only way to do that is to unleash Russell Wilson, put him on that big burner, turn that heat all the way up, get that gravy boiling. Let's go. Come on. I do want to say, though, this week,
Gordon Ramsay's got nothing on Johnny here in the description of these burners, man. You're killing it, brother.
I appreciate that. I just want to say, with all that said, temper expectations this week again with Russ against this defense. In 3 matchups last year, he has not thrown for more than 2 touchdowns in a game. He hasn't thrown for over 250 yards. Remember, he struggled. He was QB 17, QB 15 in the 2 weeks last year where he played against this Rams defense. And also, on top of that, Rams have only surrendered 4 passing touchdowns in 4 games this season. So really difficult matchup for him. Temper your expectations, but I do think better days ahead for Russell.
Okay, well, before we get into these lineup questions, I want to ask Russell's question here. So we've got the borderline QB1 area here, Johnny. Are you starting Kirk Cousins over Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I would this week, even though Kirk came off of a terrible game. They're against Detroit. Detroit, we know, just give up a lot of points to quarterbacks or just to everyone.
Austin, would you take Justin Herbert or Trey Lance over Russ Wilson this week?
I think I would definitely give some consideration to Justin Herbert, and the Chargers are playing up against. I wouldn't go Trey Lance. I wouldn't go Trey Lance. Not with
Herbert's
the smallest
Cleveland.
I think I probably would go Justin Herbert.
We like the offense and the trajectory there. So I think that's kind of the borderline. That's the line we're at right now with Russ Wilson in this particular matchup. And until we can see the offense run a few more plays, I like it. I like it. I like it. If you like it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and help us grow the channel to even more past 2,000 subscribers right now. We're heading for 3,000, boys. We're going to try and hit that this year. All right, now let's talk a little bit about these questions. We've got everybody in the chat. Appreciate every single one of you in here right now. Awesome. We'll start with you. Rob Navarro says, start Henderson over Hunt in PPR, ?
I would. I like the ceiling of a Daryl Henderson who would have the lead and the secondary opportunity. Sony Michel hasn't done great. He could get more involved. My boy Jake Funk is always on the burner. Not really, but it's a situation where it's Henderson's to lose as where it's Chubb's to lose. Now Hunt has done great. He's going to continue to be involved. It's not even Chubb's to lose because Hunt does have his role established, but his ceiling will be limited because there's another halfback in Cleveland who's going to be probably getting 20 plus touches. Henderson cannot say the same thing.
I love that. And I love, here's the thing with Hunt right now. Hunt is living off of high efficiency right now himself. And I think that that's not something we want to sustain over the year. Whereas Chubb is like a reverse. Like right now, I think that they are going to start throwing for more touchdowns in Cleveland because they're running for so many right now. And it happens to be with Hunt, who honestly, it should be Chubb. So we'll just see how that evens out.
And let's also remember that Daryl Henderson is going up against Seattle.
Yeah,
who
Seattle
doesn't have the best rush defense, says Derrick Henry.
They would let Big Travie have 27 fantasy points against. I would be picking Big Travie up if he was against Seattle.
Corey Dean says he's going to be at the game. Corey,
there you go.
Great time, man. Enjoy that game. Joey coming in says, start Woods over Boyd, Marvin Jones Jr., Cortland Sutton, or Laviska Shenault, ? Johnny.
I actually, I would play, I do like Laviska this week.
Yeah, why don't we just rank these guys for him?
Yeah, I would probably go, I do think better days are ahead for Woods, and this matchup does tend to be okay. But I think I have more confidence in Laviska Shenault's volume. Cortland Sutton. I would go Cortland Sutton, Shenault, Woods, Marvin Jones in that order.
Sounds good. We are working through the rest of these comments here. Justin Young says Fant or Schultz in full point PPR. Austin, you just did sell high on Fant, but would you start Dalton Schultz over Fant in a full point PPR? Hot waiver ad.
Dalton Schultz has cracked into the top 5 after getting 3 touchdowns combined over the last 2 weeks. I think Dalton Schultz is going to be one of those type of tight ends who you can stream, but Fant to me has just a bit better of a package that he brings to the table. I think he's the number 2 option, but in Denver there behind Cortland Sutton, I think he's ahead of Tim Patrick right now. I like the work he did with Drew Lock his rookie season, getting over 500 yards, and I think we're going to see more work for Noah Fant. I would go Fant right now. But Schultz is fine moving forward, but Fant just brings a little bit more playmaking ability.
I like Schultz. Schultz has a mega matchup this week. Like he has like one of the best matchups of the week. But I do like what you're saying.
You'd have to monitor too what we're going to see with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy concussed last week. If we see Drew Lock, who actually did have chemistry with Fant last year in spats, because obviously both were unhealthy. But I think that's something to monitor here. Schultz definitely is coming on in a big way as like the secondary option, if not the first option in this passing attack for Dallas in games that they don't need a lot of help in. This could be another one of those games against the Giants. So we'll see what happens here. Justin Young says Gibson or Patterson in full point PPR. Look, I love what we're seeing out of Patterson, but it does not seem like it's something that he's not continuing to get a ton of snaps. He is getting a lot of looks when he's on the field, but he's got a great matchup as far as the Jets, allowing the second most points per game to the position. Johnny, do you have Patterson over Gibson?
I don't know. I would still start Gibson over Patterson, but I do think that Patterson is. People are confusing what his usage is and why it's valuable, right? Like he's not getting a lot of snaps, right? He's getting like 40% of snaps, which is right. But like Travis said, when he goes out to wide receiver, right? He is getting targeted on like 50%. So he ran like 17 routes. He got like 8 targets on 17 routes or something like that. And so they're utilizing him when they use him. And so you look at the total opportunities that you're getting. And when you're allowed to get 13 opportunities and you're allowed to put them at a wide position, how many wide receivers do you know get 13 opportunities to touch the ball? And the answer is very little. And that's why I do think that some people, we have a question coming up. Do you sell high on Patterson? And to quote Austin, and I'm going to I didn't think that you could do this before, but apparently you can. If you can get, wide receiver 1 numbers, like a DK Metcalf or some of these digs for Patterson, then I would. But I do think he's going to be like a flex, RB wide receiver 2 for you this season.
What I wanted to say on court, I wanted to add in there with Patterson. It's like because we're looking at such a unique situation here where his snap percentage isn't amazing, but his efficiency is through the roof. And the question is, can you rely and count on that efficiency? And what it seems like to me is we got a new Atlanta, right? We've got no Julio Jones. We've got a new head coach. There's a lot of familiar pieces, Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, sure, but then a lot of new pieces too. And this offense has been really proficient, and now they're not. And it seems like they're almost trying to figure out what works right now. And Cordarrelle Patterson is what is working for them in terms of getting offensive plays to hit. And so it's like, it almost feels like when you're playing Madden, and you've got like one player that you really want to see do well just because you can rely on him, you can hit him, you know how to move him on the sticks, right? That seems like to me what Atlanta is doing with Cordarrelle Patterson. It's like they might be trying to get better with other people, but right now they know how to use Cordarrelle Patterson at least, and they're going to keep leaning on that to score, get first downs. He's not in all the time, but when he's in there for a reason. It's an intentional decision. They're going to him on purpose. And until we see some proficiency from anybody other than Cordarrelle Patterson, I just think that continues.
The thing is, the reason why here's the thing, the reason why it works so well is because, as we know, he came in to the NFL as a wide receiver, and he's massive. He's like 6'2". And so what they do, if you watch a lot of their plays, what they'll do, and they do this with Mike Davis as well, but it's a much more bigger advantage when you have a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson who runs a low 4s, 40. And you're all of a sudden you're putting so they'll motion him out to the outside as a wide receiver. And what he does is he runs goes. And so now you have, not only is it a mismatch, because if you're in man, guess who follows out to that corner area? It's a linebacker. And so, which is like a linebacker on a running back is typically an advantage for the offense. But now not only is it you're putting a linebacker on a running back, but that running back is actually a wide receiver that's 6'2" and can run a 4.40. And so it's like, good luck. And that's why you're seeing all these deep bombs, and where Cordell is just making amazing plays and burning these guys is because that mismatch works.
Do you think defense is going to wise up to that as they get more film?
The problem is the way that you would have, the way they check plays and the way they stretch it, it creates that mismatch piece to where you can't, like, yeah, you can go and say, all right, the corner now, or the safety can say, all right, I'm going to check out of this, but now you have a hole where the safety is. So it creates a hole because now you're trying to, that's why it's such an ingenious move to move Cordero, like, kind of like you said in Madden, you know, you put your favorite player at your a position where you can use them a lot. And then
Yeah, I think it's something that where the bottom's going to fall out eventually, just because usage is something that ends up being king. But it could be something that hits all year long. I mean, if you're saying that 1 out of 4 plays, you know, you're going to use Cordarrelle Patterson and had him go deep, and they've hit on every single one of them now. Eventually, I think that falls through. But stick with us. Thursday, we'll be doing the buy low, sell high, and I'm going to have some stuff on Cordarrelle Patterson that I'm sure Johnny will not appreciate. So we'll stick with you.
Did that.
Justin Young says Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, AB, Higgins, or Myers in full point PPR. Austin, he needs 2 of these players in full point.
Deontay Johnson is in your lineup for show. We did not like starting him last week, coming back from that knee injury, going up against Jair Alexander, and he showed us we made a bad call. So Deontay Johnson is in your lineup number 1 on that list. I would be full point PPR. Myers gets crazy volume. He doesn't get a lot of yards, but I think Johnny, I saw him stat out number 6 in the NFL right now in receptions or in targets. So that's nice. I'm going to pause on that. That's my thought on Myers, but Higgins, I like him moving forward, but not coming back after that, after missing last week with an injury. I'd pause on that. I like Antonio Brown. I like his 11 targets I think he got last week, just 1 behind Mike Evans. That's good, but he still has a lot of mouths over there. Amari Cooper is a bit banged up and seems like he was out with the hamstring, but then he was in. But hamstrings are no joke. So I'm not, with all this weight you got here, I would probably wait and see on Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson for sure. And then I think I would go on the upside of Antonio Brown, and then I'd go Jacoby Myers, T. Higgins, and then Amari Cooper is just a wait and see for me. Like, if he was healthy, it'd be different, but I don't think he is.
I saw this stat and it was like Jacoby Myers hasn't scored since like 2018, which was his like senior year in college, bro. And so I literally sent back and I was like the gif of like, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, he must be due then.
Yeah, he must be due, dude. 2 years.
Side note on Cooper, who will probably miss practice a lot this week, but did come back after the hamstring to hit a 19-yard deep bomb touchdown.
Yeah, dude, that was
touchdown.
wild.
Came back from that game. So yeah, it did look dangerous, but he is banged up, but hold on hope there. Justin Young, start Henderson over Kamara in full point PPR. We like Henderson a lot. Do we like him enough to go over Kamara here, guys? Not getting any targets for the first time in his career last week.
So wild.
Taysom Hill is a real factor. Hill is a real factor right now on the goal line. I like the 20+ touches Alvin Kamara is getting, but Daryl Henderson's doing really good stuff.
Converging trains, right? We have Henderson converging to elite status and usage and on a high-powered offense, and we have Kamara converging over towards like outside of the top 12 because he's not being used in the passing game. How do we feel? Like, which one gives?
Against
Are we
Washington? Kamara against Washington. Henderson
against Seattle.
How do you know? No, I know. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Washington gives up all the passing yards to running backs. They're pretty, like, against the run, they're a little bit more stout. Against the pass, that's where they are affected.
I don't think we have the cojones to say it, but we all want Henderson.
I would start Henderson. My thing is, why can't you get both of these guys in your lineup? Like, who do you have that you're like, I'm not going to start both of these guys because I would.
Let us know. Joey says Gibson or Edmonds this week. Johnny,
Gibson.
All right, we're
I do
rolling
want
with
to give a little bit of extra credit with Edmonds. He's a better runner than I gave him credit at the start of the year.
He's a stud,
He's
dude.
shifty. He's shifty.
Gus Ramos says, should I play Jacoby over Tyler
Jacoby.
Lockett this week? I would go with Tyler
PPR.
Lockett. I would go
Maybe
with Tyler
Lockett. Like we talk about the lack of touchdowns Jacoby's gotten for like this last part of the better decade, and Lockett is really good at sniffing touchdowns out.
Yeah.
David Harris says, standard league, debating one running back spot between Najee, Harris, Gibson, Fournette. Thinking Najee for workload, but Fournette has a great matchup against Miami. Yeah, this is a...
I would go Najee.
I think you're going Najee Harris here. Just volume alone makes him the play.
Najee Harris for me gets the start, and it's not a lot of consideration. Najee Harris leads the NFL in halfback targets, halfback receptions, and only Benny Snell has gotten literally 3 other carries the entire season. Leonard Fournette is the one, but Ronald Jones got the touchdown last week. I don't know why
Najee Harris, Pro Football Focus, number 2 running back in expected points so far. Only behind Derrick Henry and just in front of my boy DeAndre Swift. Those are the top 3.
Eric Saldana providing context to the Cordarrelle Patterson that he has both Mike Davis and Cordarrelle Patterson, and he doesn't trust both in the long run. I mean, I think excitement-wise, I would probably try to get out of Davis before Patterson, but I think you could probably get more value out of Patterson right now.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas Medina says, got Randall Cobb on waiver. Should I start him over Aguilar or Ayuk? What about Curtis Samuel? Advise, por favor. Cheers from, and I can't tell what flag.
It's got to be Panama, right?
Oh, that's right. I think that's from Panama. I actually think I would start Randall Cobb over all those guys mentioned here, just because we have MVS on the IR. So that slid Alan Lazard out to outside. It slid Randall Cobb into the slot, which means we targeted Randall Cobb a lot more in the red zone. We used him a lot more, which is what both LaFleur and Rodgers have been calling for since they brought the old friend back into Green Bay. Ayuk, I want to trust, but I can't. The usage just is not there. And Curtis Samuel could get an uptick. We've got injuries to Diami Brown and Logan Thomas, but I would want to see it before I trust it. And I think, for me, I think it's Randall Cobb of those guys.
Aaron Rodgers loves Randall Cobb. Aaron Rodgers is on an emotional journey right now, just as much as he is on one to try to win a Super Bowl. He's going to force Randall Cobb just a little bit, and Randall Cobb seems up to the challenge. Really impressed with what he was able to do last week. I think that's going to continue at some degree moving forward.
And some sort of uncertainty here with Ayuk is the quarterback position with Trey Lance. We don't know if Trey Lance is going to come in and even want to get to Ayuk or have the ability to get to Ayuk the way we want. So
it could be better long term. We don't know yet, We just don't know.
Half point PPR, Marvin Jones versus Tennessee or Julio Jones versus Jacksonville, Johnny?
I would go.
Got to see if Julio plays.
Yeah, you have to see if Julio plays. If Julio plays, then I'm playing Julio over Marvin Jones. But if Julio doesn't play, you go with Marvin.
I just couldn't get cute on this one like that. Julio.
Gus Ramos breaking Johnny's heart here said he traded Swift for Hunt and Damian Harris.
Oh,
I couldn't pass up 2 for 1. Plus, I have Henry and Javonte Williams. I wish you would have got a big wide receiver for this. If you had the running back depth, I wish you would have not done the 2 for 1 and more running back depth here. You could have tried to get a couple wide receivers, maybe.
I do think better days are ahead for Damian, but I think you bought high on Hunt right now. So yeah, I wouldn't have done this trade.
Austin, Rob saying flex Hunter Renfrow or Brandon Cooks full point PPR. And thank you guys. You're welcome, Rob. Austin?
I think I would go Brandon Cooks because he is the one and the one alone. Nico Collins is on the IR, and Johnny has said it about Brandon Cooks. He's kind of quarterback proof in kind of a strange way. Now, I don't like the situation now with Rod Taylor out. It's not going to be great. But Hunter Renfrow, I like his role. I like his situation. I just don't. Darren Waller, Henry Ruggs, Ryan Edwards. Those guys are all more talented than Hunter Renfrow is, and that means Hunter Renfrow's floor could be 0. Brandon Cooks's floor is going to come from just how bad the Houston offense is, but if they get anything going, they're going to be trying to get Brandon Cooks involved where they could just game plan. They could win and Hunter Renfrow could do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things here. One, Brandon Cooks in a game where Davis Mills threw 4 interceptions on Sunday was still able to get 5 catches for 47 yards. So he has some sort of floor to Austin's point. The other thing is they're playing New England, who has made a killing in destroying rookie quarterbacks and taking away your best weapon. And Houston only really has one weapon in Brandon Cooks right now. So I would be fading Cook. There's not going to be many weeks you can fade Cooks, I think. This would maybe be the week I do it for Hunter Renfrow, only because of, like we said, he's going to be able to soak up targets. I mean, it was just really strange on that Monday night game. They needed a 3rd down, and it was Hunter Renfrow who the Chargers double teamed. So it's like they know what the Raiders want to do with Renfrow, and I just think that's what I would go with here. Just it's a tough one though. I think
coming after your boy. Plays Chicago too, so that helps.
I just want to say what's up to Max Coble.
Oh yeah, Twitch.
DeAndre Hopkins for Mike Williams and Deontay Johnson, full point PPR. Johnny.
Ooh,
I wouldn't do this deal.
I wouldn't.
Johnson. If
you would keep.
Yeah, absolutely. In full point PPR. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, Deontay just gets like 20 fantasy points.
I got to talk you into Deontay Johnson right now. That's
for a second I'm trying to think of who he had. That was why I'm like, what side would I rather be on?
Yeah, if you can get out of DeAndre, I think, and I don't mean this as like I'm down on DeAndre or anything, but we're talking about the format here, and I just think DeAndre is going to live in this offense that doesn't require a lot of targets for him here. So the format gets a little bit tough here. Austin hops in my cup. Great name there. Debo is keep or trade. I was offered Lamb straight up for him. Help in PPR.
Ooh, this is a really good one. Now, I'm going to give the same line that I've given the entire time on this. If you can trade Debo at where he's currently statted, and that is a wide receiver 1, a top-end wide receiver 1, dare I even say like close to elite wide receiver 1, if you can get that value for him in a position of need, do it. Do it right now. Because at worst case scenario, it's a lateral move. Best case scenario, you hoodwink somebody a little bit because you sold him at a higher price and then he dropped down. So I would try to make a lateral move right now if you can get that Debo value to be where he's currently statted, and that's top half wide receiver 1. This question right here, though, I was offered Lamb straight up for him. I think I would. I think this could be like a smart one. Now we're looking in the tea leaves. We got to look ahead. We got to say this hasn't happened yet, but here's why it could. I think CeeDee Lamb is the most talented wide receiver on the Dallas Cowboys, and I don't think it's very close. I know Travis loves that expression, but it's just true for me right here. It's CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper is the veteran. Amari Cooper has got the experience, but Amari Cooper is in a somewhat familiar position. He's a little bit banged up. CeeDee Lamb was on his way to catch Amari Cooper already. Factor in this tissue issue, and I like CeeDee Lamb's chances. I like Dallas Cowboys' ability to get first downs, score touchdowns, and all of that. It's just a little bit more balanced of a Dallas team, so we haven't seen it go crazy. But I think CeeDee Lamb is going to become more of a main vein, and I think Debo is going to become less of a main vein as Brandon Ayuk gets more worked into the offense, and George Kittle, if he does have some recovery from that calf issue he's dealing with, he's going to be eating into Debo Samuel as well, and there's other options on that team as well.
Not just the priors that we have with CeeDee Lamb, but the uncertainty that we have with Trey Lance in Debo Samuel. Now, I know he got Debo. I know he got Debo Samuel this last week on a blown coverage, but we have to assume that maybe Kittle and Ayuk get more involved in the offense. Plus, this is an offense that doesn't pass a lot. So I think that's some of the things working against Debo here. 17 of you rocking with us. We're about to close out this show, but we appreciate every one of you. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. We're going to rock through the rest of these questions, and we will be back with daily content tomorrow. All right. Carter Payne, Austin says, who do you think I could get for Robert Woods? I need to trade him, but I'm not sure who I could get in PPR.
So here's the line that Johnny gives with this, and I think this is spot on. We could go through a thought exercise and say here who would be a comparable trade value for Robert Woods, but that really doesn't do you any benefit because you're trying to get a deal done, right? And so you could go to the guy who has the name that we say is of equivalent value to Robert Woods, and he's like, I don't want Robert Woods. I don't want to trade. I don't want to make this happen. So it doesn't do you any good. What you should do instead is go out and identify on your own squad, Carter, what position of need you have. Maybe it's a quarterback, wide receiver, and some different wide receiver help, tight end, running back, and then go off and look at other members in your league and find who would benefit from having Robert Woods, who also then has one of those positions you're looking to pick up. Then put on, give yourself a nice tone of voice, come to him with respect and be like, hey, I was taking a look at both our squads. I think we could help each other out. What are your interests on Robert Woods? I've got a feeling here for, and then there's the guy you're looking at. So I would attack it from that angle. As far as a ranking, I'm putting Robert Woods as like a wide receiver 3 flex option for me right now, but his name still holds a little bit of value. I think good days are ahead for him. You might want to sit on him until he pops and then move him. But if you can get something going for him right now, somebody who's maybe had Robert Woods in the last 2 or 3 years on their team and they know what he could do, then you could probably get a deal done. And I'd say go for that.
Yeah, you got Seattle this week, and then at the Giants, at Detroit, or then Detroit, at Houston, then Tennessee. So, and then at San Fran. So some really good matchups coming up for Robert Woods.
Tough time to trade him. Not the best time to trade him.
Yeah.
Start Debo Samuel over Kupp or Ridley, Johnny, or play Debo over Kareem Hunt at the flex in PPR.
Or play Debo over Kareem Hunt. I would, in PPR, I would probably play Debo over Kareem Hunt. I would keep Kupp and Ridley in your lineup.
I like
Not
that
the
take
best
as well.
matchup for Ridley this week, but you're going to roll him
Volume
out.
alone, I think he
Yeah.
just continues to. He's going to be a guy that's waiting to break out one of these weeks here.
Yeah.
Max comes in. DeAndre Hopkins for Mike Williams and Deontay Johnson. We answered this one. Full point PPR. Was this the same guy or different? Oh, he's on Twitch and YouTube. Diversified.
Oh, nice. I like it. I like
We
it.
like that deal on the Mike Williams and Deontay Johnson side for full point PPR. At least I do. Do it 420. Just a quick mention. Dallas Cowboys have one of the best playoff schedules. So just throwing that in there for the CD Lamb situation.
Yep.
Hops in my cup. Thanks, fellas, for all the awesome content. We appreciate you. Max saying, awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm trying to trade my way back up after trading Jonathan Taylor and Deontay Johnson for Nick Chubb and AB. And my main priority was getting Deontay back. I love him. Glad I can get good value.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wesley Love says, who do you guys like the most? Jamar Chase, Brandon Cooks, or Deontay Johnson, Austin?
Like Jamar Chase. I wish I had him on my League of Record team so I could get his jersey after I win the championship. I just think he's got such a cool story, and I like what he's about. I like how he hasn't played in a couple years, and he's just kicking ass. But from a fantasy perspective, it's Deontay Johnson. We thought he was going to have a down week last week. He did not. He's a PPR monster. He's Big Ben's favorite target. I rank him Deontay Johnson, Jamar Chase. And I just had a trade for Brandon Cooks right before the show started. I like Brandon Cooks, but not before those two.
Johnny, this is a kind of a tough question. Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford? Prescott's had some down games based on what Dallas has needed out of him, and Stafford's been very consistent with great upside. This is that Thursday night thirst. Are you rolling with Stafford over Prescott here?
Oh, yeah. This one, I would probably go with Prescott still. Prescott.
Dak Prescott there. All right. Gus Ramos, last question here before we sign off. Austin, my wide receivers are Lockett, Jacoby, and AJ Green and Judy. Plus, I also have AJ. I thought this was a question, but I think he's just telling us who he got here.
Nice.
Once again, Lockett, Jacoby, and AJ Green, and I have Jerry Judy. Plus, I have AJ Dillon and Naheem Hines. Was this a follow up to maybe what he was asking?
He
traded away because he traded away Swift.
Oh, that's right.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that convinces Johnny that you should have done it, but we'll.
Two starting running backs are nice.
Yeah,
I get it. At least I get it.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for us in the Thursday Night Football matchup. Make sure you're over on on Patreon and all podcast platforms to get the full matchup breakdowns of all the matchups that we do for the Sunday slate of games. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, for Austin Sear, I'm Big Travie. We're the Fantasy Whisperers. We're out. Peace.
Goodbye.
Right here.
Look at you go. You made it to the end of another one of our videos. Hey, if you still have some questions, I totally understand. Or you just want to join an awesome fantasy football community, head on over to our Discord chat. Link is in the description below. And if you're still not sold on us, check out one of these videos.